Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Robert Bell. I'm the Executive Director of the Society of Satellite Professionals as well as of the World Teleport Association. And those two organizations are very pleased to welcome you to the Content Distribution Forum here. We produce it every year in collaboration with the National Association of Broadcasters. And from Monday through today, Wednesday, we are presenting 12 panel sessions on the technology and the business of content distribution, from traditional broadcasting to IPTV, the triple play to mobile video. And I put it in that order, technology and business, because it's my observation that increasingly, as change accelerates in the technology front, it is turning business models upside down and inside out in this business. And so we think it's very helpful to try to understand the foundation of the change, if you will, in the technology of distribution and how it impacts business. And then tomorrow, if you walk by, you'll be able to catch some of the most popular sessions from the previous 3 days being played out on the screen here. This program is made possible by the sponsorship of some leading companies in our business, and I'd like to share them with you. They're Intelsat, the operator of the world's largest satellite fleet; Inmarsat, which is a global leader in mobile satellite services; Embrato Systems, which offers video processing solutions for HD broadcast cameras and tapeless studios; and Cisco Systems, which provides, of course, video, IPTV, cable, and content delivery solutions around the world. And I also want to thank PSSI Global Services for providing live and recorded video coverage of this forum, which is being streamed now and will also be available on the websites of SSPI and WTA for the next year following this. And finally, if you're interested in learning anything more about our associations, you'll find some literature on the rack in the back. And it's now my pleasure to introduce the moderator for Monetizing Digital Media. He is Ryan Lawler, Senior Editor for, and this has got to be a great name, Content and Opal. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank our sponsors and also SSPI and WTA for putting this on. We're going to be talking today about monetizing digital media. It's a subject that a lot of people are trying to figure out. We're going to talk about changing business models, the types of technology that enable it, and we're also going to be talking about sort of shifts in how content owners are looking at this problem. We have a good panel with people from all sorts of all sides of the digital media ecosystem, from content acquisition to building the user experience to delivering it. So I guess to start, I'll just go down the line and let everyone introduce themselves. Take a few minutes to introduce yourself, your company, and how you sort of fit into this. Starting with Sam.
Good morning, everybody. Sam Farraj, AVP of Digital Media Solutions for AT&T. We have a portfolio of products from asset management systems to a number of different public and private content delivery solutions.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alasdair Calder. I'm the Director of Product Development at Spacenet, Inc., McLean, Virginia. We've predominantly been a two-way VSAT service provider for data communications. But over the last few years, we've been developing a new digital media alliance, looking at new technologies for our existing and new customers in the areas of digital signage and business TV.
My name is John Rooney. I'm on the Silverlight marketing team at Microsoft. We've been working on the Silverlight team, partnering with folks to deliver really great interactive video and application experiences through the web using our technology, and again, working with some partners.
Good morning, Mia Babic with iStream Planet. We provide managed webcasting services, entails doing live events on the internet, multi-formats. We provide various applications, anything from asset management product to different tools to monetize the content, protect the content, distribute it and publish it, as well as some digital media consulting services.
I'm Joe Kittrell, Vice President of Broadcast Marketing at PSSI Global Services. We have 26 satellite uplink trucks all over the United States, some flyaways. We do international services all over the world. And we've done webcasting services, streaming services, all the way from early days of the infancy of that product, all the way from helping to produce and originate the programs in a broadcast environment to transmitting them over satellite for delivery, which is much the same we're doing here today. This originates here. It's originating at HD, which is pretty unusual and pretty cost ineffective for a webcast, but it's a trend, and we're originating with a high-def camera, fiber high-def out to our satellite truck, uplinked over over satellite space provided by Ecosphere, and downlinked across town into Mio's facility, where it's encoded and sent to the web. So virtually we could sit here with a screen and see the whole chain from microphone and about a minute, 20 seconds delay with the whole thing back to us on a screen here in front of us.
Okay. To start, there's been a lot of talk about analog dollars, digital pennies. I think we're up to digital dimes now. I guess the main question is, clearly there's the audience is going digital. More and more people are online. The engagement times are there. So why haven't the dollars shown up online? And from your opinion, how is that going to change? Leave it up to anyone.
Well, I think I can start just in our experience with some of the events that we've done, whether it was the NBC Olympics or March Madness, to some sort of less visible events. It's from the agency side. I mean, again, online advertising, whether it's video or not, is really about advertisers and the agencies that serve them. And it's just, in our experience with our partners, it's been somewhat difficult inventory to buy in a lot of cases, just because there isn't the same scale and breadth of audience. So there are standardization issues around formats. So exactly what are the ads going to look like? How does the creative get there? How much of that creative is unique for the web, or how much of it is just repurposed TV ads? So I think Ryan and I were talking before the panel. I'm not always convinced that sort of why we're looking at pennies or dimes versus dollars. I don't know that necessarily the technology is a long pole in the tent. There are just other things sort of in the business process that need to come along. Anybody?
Anyone else? Yeah. No. Do you have? Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, we have a microphone.
Thank you. Kevin Wright, PKS Entertainment. And I'm thinking that so much of it has become, because of the new technology, marketing has been marketing for 100 years.
Sure.
It's eyes on. Whatever, you get enough people looking at it, they're going to come through. And the thing that bothers me is what it is that for so much of it is the marketing aspect of it is your marketing people at your various, damn it, I hate but anyway, they are not comfortable with it. The people that are actually putting the ads together are not comfortable with it, because they are looking at, okay, if it's not television, if it's not standalone, if it's not magazines, therefore it's not effective. And we all know that 3% of whatever your market looks at it is actually going to be your market individuals. Mm-hmm. What we need is the ad agencies to actually understand that it is viable. And the sad thing is that they cannot, at this point, turn around and say, okay, this person is going to take this and put it in their pocket. And I think that the technology is now in their face hard enough that they'll forward with it.
Yeah, as you said, I agree 100%. It's perception. To me, it's all perception. I'm 61 years old, and it's just that whole mindset of what's real and what's not. And we have the whole die-hard broadcast, which I don't want them to hear me too much over there. But everything's going more and more to the next generations, and even now to small screens. And that's going to keep moving forward, whether they accept it or not. And you're right; it's these ad agencies. They're diehard. They're entrenched in the way it is, and it's a word I've hated my entire life. The way it is, and once that is accepted and they start moving in that direction, they'll start picking up market share, and it'll start generating revenue for them, and then they'll see the results of it. Right? We're driving it. We're trying to drive that train.
Yeah, again, I think it's an important point overall, is trying to get the media out, whether it's online or, as we see it, when we're trying to do satellite services to end enterprises, whether it's a digital signage or it's radio, branded in-store radio. The problem is trying to get the advertisers to really see that, even if you're talking about a small segment of the overall market compared to a broadcast TV, you've got to somehow generate the co-op dollars there, with your end customer and the advertiser. And then you basically got to justify that there's a return on investment here. And that is very, very difficult. And it's something that is, specifically in the digital signage market, the SNOW, is just the biggest hurdle that we've got to get over. I think everyone understands the concept. It makes perfect sense. But you're going to have to spend money, again, on infrastructure, hardware, software, and then you've got to try and generate those advertising dollars. And, for smaller segments, that the market research becomes much more difficult, just to, again, push the ROI on it overall.
Well, you're talking a lot about the change in behavior. And I think the fundamental problem is that people are looking at a television model that's been around for a number of years, and they're saying, why don't we just deploy this on the web? Well, it's a different medium altogether, and it requires different approach. How you market it, how you sell it, how you position it, how you look at your target market demographics, how you interact with them.
Yeah, but I think that so much of it comes down to the perception of what is different. The reality of it is that because you can try to segment the market all day long, but if you say, okay, advertising in and of itself is people looking at your product, eyes on. Cut out all of the, to me, the essence of it comes down to, if you have a freeway ad, how many eyes actually see that ad? But they're willing to do that. It doesn't matter that somebody's changing the radio or, they're talking to somebody. They see, okay, there's 150,000 cars going by. They say, okay, that's your market. This is worldwide now, and that's what we're talking about.
Exactly. And also on top of that, what I was trying to indicate here is you can take a program feed off the satellite, for example, that has ads embedded and targeted towards certain audience in closed circuit environment, for example, and expect you're going to get the same type of results because you are going to that global audience, and not necessarily that audience won't match those particular ads. So technology is there to address those issues, but again, you have to build that comfort level among all these different parties involved in the process, so the technology is applied in the proper way, so you can measure it properly and you can monetize it properly.
I think that there's also an issue with how we're going to be reaching these audiences. John and I were talking before the panel, and one of the things that we talked about was that right now the audience is there, but it's extremely fragmented. And there's really no good way for a marketer to buy at scale to reach all of those audiences in a way that actually keys in on the engagement that you have online, as opposed to in a linear or broadcast channel. And so, do you see the technologies coming around to enable something more than just a 15-second cut of a 30-second pre-roll?
And I think that's one of the things we're seeing now, and to somewhat come to the defense of the agencies, because I don't know that any of them are here. They're working with a certain amount of budget, and they get a big pie, a relatively small pie that is digital spend. A smaller piece of that pie is going to be the video spend. So when you think about, and again, talking from sort of the technology side of what you can do, just because you can do doesn't mean you're going to do it in the course of your business. So if you look at sort of what ads look like from an interactivity standpoint as far as taking advantage of capabilities, it kind of goes back to the same very well-worn anecdote about the early days of TV when people sat and read radio ads. and that's essentially where we are with online video. And so the capabilities are there as far as doing more interaction, doing overlays, but there are issues both in terms of, well, how much can an agency, how capable are the people actually doing that creative with the technology on the first hand, and I think we're seeing that ramp up very quickly. And then how much of that spend if at the end of the day as a marketer, right, put yourself, I'm a brand marketer somewhere. I care about getting my positioning my brand in a way that I can understand and measure and talk and account for my boss's back. It's going to be billboards and American Idol and those things. I'm not going to get fired for that. So it's getting there. I think the capabilities are there, but ad networks are being built out both sort of vertically and horizontally to reach kind of fragmented audiences across different places. I mean, I think context is kind of a big problem with online video ads, where I think particularly where you're seeing kind of the big broad market aggregators of video ads putting a lot of downward pressure on CPMs because, all of a sudden I'm, what's the Martha Stewart Living and I'm being, presented with, some user-generated video. It's just an odd, that brand association. It's not just a billboard on a freeway. It's what is my content next to, and then how much is that worth to me? And those things are getting better. I think those are dials to be tweaked. But again, I don't foresee. I foresee that as an inevitability, and we're marching very quickly towards that. So.
One of the other things that we talked about before the panel was, it's not just advertising. And there are lots of different other business models. Subscription is one, pay-per-view is one. I was wondering if Sam or Mio, if you could talk about how the content owners that you're working with and the projects that you're on, how there's a change in perception there, as far as advertising isn't the only way to go online.
Well, I'll speak about it from two perspectives. As having an eyeball network. Content owners are not just looking at our broadband subscribers or our UVerse subscribers, but also the 70 million wireless subs. So in terms of my organization, it's helping them do that. So it's the integrated ad spend across all those screens, whether it's digital signage down to the phone. And I think that's really where the difficulty is, because up to this point, everything's been a one-off application. How do I schedule for mobile? How do I buy ads for mobile? How do I transcode for delivery to broadband? And that's really where we're seeing the most discussions happening in terms of, I've got separate IT departments, I've got separate sales departments for each one of these. Can you help me collapse it so I can turn those pennies into at least a little bit of margin?
We have certainly seen a tremendous shift over last quarter. We've seen about 300% increase in content owners coming to us and saying, advertising has slowed down for us and we're looking for different ways. We have some premium content. How can we? What other different ways can we use to monetize on it? And certainly the pay-per-view is one way. And we see this trend continue as the economy is certainly slowing down. Number of advertisers coming to the table is smaller. So it's certainly a trend, and we anticipate, Ryan, for this trend to continue.
Okay. All right. So how about the cost side of the equation? One side of it is obviously bringing the advertising or monetization up, but then there's also the cost of production for some of this. Is the cost going down quickly enough to sort of justify the amount of content that's going online that may or may not be monetized?
So a good example is a discussion I was having last night. A sports production company that has a library of content that only it's a couple 100,000 hours worth of content. And in terms of managing the rights for that portfolio, only about 40 minutes of it gets monetized. So they're having a hard time of justifying moving it to a digital environment. So you have to get to a price point where that makes sense. And that's really where my organization on the enterprise side is trying to drive that cost down so where it makes sense. Collapse the different silos, make storage on demand so that you can actually make money by participating in the digital side of the equation.
I think if you look at the bottom line, the costs are declining, although some complexities have increased. Going from SD to HD, the complexities have increased. Anything from content production side all the way to the delivery side, there's different sets of requirements.
Yeah, we see from our perspective with satellite distribution, we try to get into the middle kind of mile, as it were, in terms of media distribution. We're not doing an overall broadcast to hundreds of thousands of subscribers. We're looking at maybe several thousand at one time, anywhere from a couple of hundred to 10,000 typically. And of course, they have very unique requirements in their content. For example, finance institutions want to put business TV as well as digital signage. And for business TV, for them, they want to take the main news feeds and be able to pump that in at the retail side. They want to be able to put it in the back office. But particularly when it comes to the retail front office side, they don't want to see content that is their competitors' advertising and whatever. So they have a requirement where they want these news feeds, standard news feeds you can get from direct-to-home broadcasting feeds. But they want to be able to tailor it, and of course the requirements come in that then becomes a separate feed, and then putting it out over satellite when you've only got to amortize it over a couple of thousand, tens of thousands as opposed to hundreds of thousands causes a problem. You just don't get the economies of scale there. But we do see that the cost of the equipment to deliver that for enterprise users is certainly coming down. There's new technologies again on the satellite side with new efficiencies. Even with MPEG-4 we can get pretty good high quality at cost effective rate, but to be honest, a lot of the time it just comes down to the actual content distribution rights as well from some of the major distributors and news channels themselves. Again, they're used to dealing with the 100,000 plus subscribers, and when you come along with 6,000 or whatever, then the economics are a completely different scale. So this brings the argument about at what point does it become effective, but it's definitely coming down and further down. Every year we see that, so we can certainly say that costs are coming down. 5 years ago this just wouldn't really have been possible for us, and of course we see more capabilities as each year goes on.
Okay. There's also been a lot of talk about HD, moving higher quality files. To a certain extent, it seems like obviously you can get longer engagement times, you can get people to become more engaged with the content, but are the content owners that you're working with, are they actually able to turn around and monetize that? At which point does it make sense for someone to run an HD stream as opposed to an SD stream, and what sort of considerations do you have to take into account?
I can talk about it. So what we have seen is, especially over the last several months, with the introduction of new adaptive streaming technologies that enable service providers such as ourselves to create the content and create it in a way where content adapts to the end user's capabilities, both in terms of the bandwidth and as well as the CPU on the machine user is using. And what that has done for us is given us the opportunity to create that HD type of experience. And certainly comes at cost. Your standard video a year ago, average bit rate was 500K. Now, with adaptive streaming, we're going up to the 3 megabits per second, and we're doing a 1280 by 720 HD stream on that. So certainly your costs have gone up from doing average 700K to 3 megabits per second. But however, like Sam was pointing out, and I think the folks like AT&T and others are working on finding a new different ways and leveraging some of the technologies to decrease some of those costs. But it's certainly a consideration. I think, Ryan, when we mentioned to our content partners, yes, we can provide HD experience, their next question is, how much more this is going to cost me? And how do I get my return on investment on this? So again, it goes back to our first question.
So I think one thing that we've seen, and again it kind of goes back to the catch-up aspect of HD video, and I'm talking specifically on sort of the premium content aspect of it. For some of, again, sort of the adaptive streaming stuff that's been done with our technology and projects that we've been involved with, the actual time spent watching the content per user is far outshot any estimates from the content provider. So it's kind of a high class problem in the sense that in theory, okay, the higher quality of the video, the longer people will watch it, the more opportunities to monetize that with ads, with interstitial ads. It's not the same problem of 5 years ago, or whatever n number of years ago with the IAB. Is like, well, how do you throw a 30-second ad on a 30-second video? And I think that paradigm has sort of shifted away from that, where you're having engagement times that are no longer being measured in minutes necessarily, but in dozens of minutes. And I think that kind of, again, to tie back to the first question, that's sort of a much more comfortable, a comfortable media buy for someone to do, to say, oh, someone will be watching a full-length, hour plus a program on the web. Well, it's just like the TV. Okay, well then I know how to do the ads against it. It's not, oh, well, they're going to start to see a pre-roll and they're going to run away. And I think folks, again, the HD side of that has driven that engagement, but I just don't know that that the monetization has caught up to how long people are actually sticking to it. So the stickiness has been a good problem.
Yeah, I think with moving from SD to high definition, there's always going to be problems with the transport mechanism, whether it's terrestrial or satellite. The problem you've got, particularly in the unicast environment, is that we know that we're getting more and more bandwidth to the home, but there are still a lot of areas where bandwidth is still very precious, and in a unicast environment, when you're going to high def and doubling your bit rates over an IP network, that always causes a problem. So again, people want a higher quality of service, in terms of the visual approach and what they're seeing on the screen, but again, it comes with the trade-off that you are going to have problems. And we've seen that as well. We've seen existing in the digital signage market where there's a streaming application as well as a store and forward application that using even terrestrial DSL links is just not sufficient, particularly for a multi-site network, in the hundreds and thousands of sites.
Well, given that it's so difficult to make money, do you see any of these content owners actually retrenching, pulling back from the higher quality stream, or is this something where they absolutely have to be?
I don't think once you see the, for example, smooth streaming experience, adaptive streaming experience, it's like it's like going from dial-up to a broadband experience. All of a sudden, it takes 10 minutes. It takes 10 minutes to get your email. You go in broadband experience, it takes 2 seconds, and you don't want to go back. And I think content owners will run a huge risk of really alienating their audience if they provide that type of experience, and then they go back and eliminate and go kind of standard web experience we've seen over a number of years. And what we have seen with adaptive streaming, to John's point, is we have seen average viewing time on average has increased 2.5 times. I mean, that's a significant amount of time that's spent, and certainly provides content owners with more buying power, or more power when they go back to advertisers. If my content's being watched 10 minutes versus 25 minutes, that's a big difference. It really depends on. Absolutely, it depends on the content. If you're talking about the business content, we're seeing 50 to 70%. But if you're talking about media entertainment content, we're talking about an average 250% increase on that, which is phenomenal. And content owners are super excited about it.
Convert that when you say 250% increase. What is that? Because I think
so like on a business content, on average 60-minute content, right? We have seen probably by between 9 to 11 minutes average viewing time, and now that has gone up. That has gone to 17 to 18 minutes on average. Now in sports and entertainment content, in the past we have seen 15 to 17 minutes was considered really successful event. We have seen that going to 25 to 30 minutes on average if you take across different types of content, and that's a significant shift. And again, it's like you're going from a dial-up to a broadband. You never want to go back.
Okay. When we think about advertising online, it seems like a lot of users almost have been spoiled because they've been able to watch this long form content and maybe have 1-2 ads, interspersed in between. But it seems like there's more interest, at least from the content owner's point of view, in making at least broadcast content advertising look more like TV advertising. Can any of you speak to the trends that you're seeing there? Are we going to have 2-minute pods online?
I think, Ryan, this also ties back to the different business models, pay model versus free model. What we have seen is, and again, with adaptive streaming technology, you have ability to say, you can watch this content for free at 300 and 500, up to the 500K, but if you want this HD content, you can pay some nominal fee for that, and you get a higher quality of content delivered to you. You get TV type of experience, and we're talking about really TV type of experience here. So we have certainly seen some shifts, although it is a fairly new trend, and I think everyone's still trying to figure out how impactful this is, and in terms of what do they need to do to adjust, both on monetization side as well as the cost side.
In terms of the direct question, are you going to see more and more, or the 2-minute pod? In the discussions that I've had, everybody's indicating they're following the cable model. At first, there wasn't a lot of commercials. We're going to see more and more of it, but it may not be interrupting the actual feed or the show itself. It may be interdispersed in terms of a video egg or a banner next to it, but it's coming, and they're expecting it. They're being patient is actually what I would say today.
Okay.
And I think the opportunity around, whether you're just going to sort of shift those same, number of units and number of minutes per broadcast, I think that's, again, goes back to taking advantage of the capabilities of the medium. So if as people get a better understanding of measuring, whether it's cost per impressions or an action model or some sort of brand lift or awareness, maybe you don't need more points, more touch points for sponsorship, because at the end of the day, the pricing on effectiveness, if that can be measured, there's no reason to default back to, well, that's what we did in TV because we couldn't measure kind of on the client side. As we get better understandings of, how did these distinct touch points, these distinct branding opportunities affect the end user, and then what can I charge from that? That may lead to some innovation, but there are a lot of companies and a lot of VC dollars chasing that problem right now, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the next few years.
Sam, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you're sort of in an interesting position. AT&T is a broadband provider and an IPTV provider and a mobile provider. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about how AT&T is looking at the 3-screen experience, and what sort of discussions are happening with content owners, like the cable broadcasters that might want to enable that content across all those screens.
I think we touched on it a couple of times. I think traditionally everybody's viewed each screen as a separate stovepipe, and it generates a high amount of costs back up to the content owner in terms of how they want to monetize it. So where my organization comes into play in trying to feed our broadband, our mobile, is to work with those enterprises to do a single acquisition method, a single storage method, and pull in folks like Mio or from a production standpoint to do the transcoding so that we can ultimately deliver. I think the trick for us is, from a startup perspective, I don't think anybody's come out with a scheduling system that works 3 screens. No one's come out with an ad buying or serving system that works 3 screens. That'll come over time, and again, I see our role as kind of taking a lot of that cost out so that people can get the margins back into the business. So it isn't a dire decision on, do we build a iPhone app for the masters? It's just something that's a natural extension of what happens.
Okay. Can you speak to how business models are changing when you look at TV Everywhere or other sort of initiatives where cable programmers are looking to authenticate through your networks to enable users to reach that content, both as a broadband subscriber and as a TV subscriber, paid TV subscriber for you?
So one of the interesting discussions that has started to happen lately is you buy a piece of content, whether it's a physical DVD or off of a mobile device or wherever. That content owner wants that relationship with you across all devices, across all providers. So whether it's a traditional cable provider or a IPTV provider like AT&T, and that becomes an interesting technological challenge to assign those rights and give it to you permanently across not just our relationship, but any relationship you have over time. So it's business models will have to change in order to support that. A lot of the puts and takes of where people make their money is going to have to change as well.
Okay. Can any of you speak to how content owners are thinking differently about licensing windows, and how the digital realm sort of throws a wrench in the windows that have already been established, and how that's changing, or how any of you see it changing?
Okay, well, I think again where we are now and sort of where we want to go, there's still sort of these carriage deals, particularly when you're talking about upmarket premium content that is restricting kind of the and I'm specifically talking about the web, the browsers, that screen, that as kind of a target for a lot of that content. So there at least in the near term, there's sort of this artificial throttle on what you can do as far as moving your content, particularly content that already has audience, that you're bringing eyeballs for, essentially television shows. And how do you bring that direct content over, and how do you complement that? Right now, they're just because of existing distribution, there's just sort of this shift going back and forth that it's slowing down a lot of things, including monetizing that. Because if you're not, if it's not a direct correlation of sort of what value you're presenting from a content standpoint on the web as on TV, it's then treated as a second-class citizen a bit as from a media buy standpoint. So that'll shift, that'll change. That's another inevitability. But those carriage deals, I think, when you look at sort of any sort of media event or content thing, when you say, oh, well, how is their online monetization versus their broadcast monetization? It's handicapped if you look at it one-to-one. You really have to look at sort of all those considerations.
Okay. And we think primarily about IP video delivery as broadband to the PC, but how's that changing as we add other devices into the network and make that content available, on your phone, on your set-top box, through a gaming console? How does that change the business models around monetizing it?
So yeah, and that's something that at least in Redmond we think about all the time, because we have a presence with mobile devices. Obviously, we do a lot of things on computers, and we have gaming consoles, and it's this sort of trade-off between opportunity and complexity. So to do a buy a network, all of a sudden when you're extending to these tiny little screens that have different capabilities, that are they're a little bit more walled gardens, that don't have the same kind of technology standards, and then you have a game, the context is there, so it's exciting. And if you're looking at, let me do an experimental ad buy with that, you're going to get that in a boom market. I think what we're seeing now is the pieces of digital media buy that are looked at as being more experimental. Nobody has that in their budget anymore. So it's all exciting. It's creating a lot of complexity, but it doesn't take a lot of vision to see where it's going to go. When you say, okay, well, if either as a content owner or as a publisher or someone who aggregates audience, if you have these multiple touch points for inventory, it's going to get really exciting once it stops being so hard.
Okay. All right.
I think
I'm going to open the floor. Oh,
sorry, it was just, I think it brings an interesting point. We're talking about content distribution here, and, as you move the content to different devices, whether there's multiple devices at home or out from the home or at business, there is no one universal content distribution method for it. So when we talk about, again, a different method, you're not technically getting the best efficiency overall in an infrastructure, because ideally the best infrastructure is going to be delivering that content to one player and delivering it only once. If you have to keep delivering it to multiple multiple distribution layers, then there's different players in there. And of course, there are bundled services, from AT&T and other, the big carriers, but they don't cover the whole gambit. And of course, that then comes down to the problem when, if you want to provide it on a maybe a smaller segment for the content distribution, then there's another charge there. There's cost associated with it. So I think, as we see, more requirements for handhelds, if you're looking at putting game consoles on your TV, until someone can provide that universal content distribution, and then even then, if they have the infrastructure, their costs are not going to be the same. As there's more platforms to deliver on, then obviously, and more distribution networks, then the price is going to go up. Certainly the cost.
All right, I'll open it up to questions on the floor.
Yeah, my thing about this is so much of it, everybody wants to talk about the differences in why it's so difficult to do. And I know that technologically there is a tremendous avenues of change that come through this, but it really comes down to what I'm watching is at the networks, they're all buying now portals that basically, because it's destination. So much of it is quality is what we keep hearing about what you were saying. Okay, if Martha Stewart's going to be next to Joe Blow's, kids party, they're going, why? But essence, with Hulu and those major destinations, you've got quality that is there, and they are streaming it, and things like Zillion, which are basically playing with the content, whether you get it in the beginning, the middle, or the end. My point is that when we talk about so much of the monetization of it, it really, again, I think that if we can get people to start talking about what's the same, which is bottom line, who's looking at your content and what are they going to do with it? I believe the internet is probably the most defining of any of the distribution programs that basically say, if I click onto that site, instantly they know somebody looked at it. Now they know that, all right, that's a very definable way of looking at, okay, is my content working? What so much of it is now, all right, be an add-on. Why not take it like, that, okay, it's not just that destination. You click on to Desperate Housewives, and all of a sudden, you know what? You get XYZ next to it as a throw-in. You get your mobile content or something like that. It's just like they do with Tide. They say, okay, you get 20% more, and then all of a sudden you're getting it for the same price. But eventually you're actually drawing in another product. All I want to say is put it out there. So much of what is it's against us, and I would like to see it go.
Do you have a question?
That was the question. I mean, how are you guys taking that to a point where it is now not us against them, but we're all going in the same direction? Because every time I hear about this, it's going the other way.
Okay.
Well, eyeballs are valuable. I think what you're basically saying is eyeballs are eyeballs. Eyeballs are valuable. The existing paradigm is, it's pretty easy to do a media buy on TV. When you pull a Nielsen report and be like, oh, that pulled an X, whatever it was. And then when you go online, yeah, sure. And then you pull a ComScore report. You pull a ComScore report. I think the intricacies when you get down to things like distribution and syndication. So who else? Particularly when you have kind of embeddable players, and there's a big piece of sort of marketing buzz and marketing speak around the excitement around the internet and syndication and social media, and with all that opportunity becomes the sort of underlying part of the eyeballs that was implicit with the broadcast model is context, and when context goes away, who knows what's taking, if I'm a brand advertiser and I'm putting an ad in front of some television show and I know it's in a television show, but some person embeds that into their site next to what other interests or hobbies they have, my brand is now associated with that person. So I think the syndication, the distribution thing, just because it's so new, and I don't think it's against. It's just we're moving faster than our we're being pushed faster than legs can keep up, and I think it's probably fair to say that most of us on the panel sit sort of on the technology side, and we're thrilled by it. We're technologists. We love, in large part, we love the technology, and I think we're working to enable and partner with folks to sort of solve those big problems. And I think it doesn't look, there's not going to be a retreat from it. It's absolutely going to get there. But it's you're talking about a decades and decades long business being transformed. When Mia was talking about the sort of smooth streaming and the HD capabilities that are really kind of bringing this home theater experience to browsers. I mean, that's you can measure that in months. So, yeah.
Other questions?
Hi, thanks. Great panel. Could you just give us a little bit of information about what individual users seem to be willing to pay, maybe just a range, and what content seems to come with the higher and lower price?
Again, it really depends on the content, and what we have seen is that particular niche content. Let's talk about, for example, World Series of Poker that we have done. Has a certain audience and that's attracted to that content, and you can watch it on ESPN maybe 20 days later or 30 days later, but they wanted to see it live, and we were able to attract that audience to the site through marketing channels that content owner had, and they're willing to pay $15 to watch someone win $10 million. But it's very niche specific content. It hasn't been deployed on a large scale where you have wide variety of content across different points of interest, and that hasn't been done successfully. It's very so much niche related, and it goes anywhere. We have seen rates anywhere from $3 a pay-per-view music concert all the way to $30 in a pay-per-view fight. Does that help? And I think in terms of alignment, to answer your question, is we love to solve problems. I mean, that's why we're all here for. It's good to make money, but solving problems like that what makes us going all the time. And I think it's more like John was saying, is certain television technology and the monetization models that was built over decades, and adaptive streaming technology was built over the last 12 months. And it's moving at exceptional pace. It's getting better every day. New models have been introduced, new features have been introduced, the quality has gone up. It's all working in our favor, but not necessary alignment between monetization models and content owners trying to adjust to the pace of change that has been introduced with this technology. But we're looking forward to solving those problems, that's for sure.
Okay.
Ion. I haven't heard a lot about metrics, and which is a pet topic of mine. As an online publisher, I think the big differentiation between the internet and TV is measurability and metrics and content personalization and ad personalization. For example, the advertiser wanting to reach me, Scott Rainey, which personally I think that's a high CPM ad buy, but you make your own judgment. So where do you see personalization taking content to the next level?
Well, I think from a targeting standpoint, again, there's a ton of potential there in a personalization standpoint. I think one of the issues that on the video side, I think the video side kind of learned a lot from how kind of the rich media advertising market matured, and that you're essentially taking the TV model's cost per impressions. You're showing it in front of people, they saw it, great, I will pay you to show this to someone. And I think there was the massive and easily understandable success of search marketing online, where you had this sort of cost per click or cost per action, which is really a direct response campaign. And I think where the friction's kind of coming, that again, it's sort of creating a little bit of dissonance around what's capable from a measurement and monetization standpoint around targeting and personalization is you're measuring brand campaigns with direct response metrics. So essentially, you're taking a billboard campaign and you're scoring it on a mailer flyer thing, and that's dissonance. Everyone kind of knows it, but it's hard to change the wheels of the car when it's driving. And but people are getting better about that. People are getting kind of smarter and more sophisticated. And as and the incentives will continue to be there as more of that ad spend moves online. More demands are going to be made of it. So as you see that, if you think of the pie for the campaign, as that digital spend, that piece of the pie gets bigger and bigger, the person sort of responsible for that campaign, who's on the line for making sure that's successful, they're going to ask more and more out of it. And I think, again, in large part, online advertising has been so quick to look at the success of search and saying, "Oh, I get it. I can get it. I can explain it to a 5-year-old." With display and video and rich media, it's a little more complex.
Other questions?
I think an important factor, speaking from a personalist perspective and what I've seen happen over the years in this industry, is you differentiate between TV screens and then you're talking about devices like this. And this one I can watch that program on, that one I can watch that on, that one I can watch that on, but I can't watch all three of them with the same program. They haven't figured out how to work together in that format. What I'm trying to say is the biggest problem I've seen in digital media moving past is the last mile. What the front end of it is, producing it, getting it across broadband networks. Those metrics have been level and, if anything, lowered over the years. The last mile is the biggest stumbling stone, and it moves from where you got a device that'll work 1G, 2G, 3G, and now they're talking about 4G, but still that last mile. And even in your house, when you can get out to broadband, and you're having, they say you have 12 megabits, but I got to tell you, that 12 megabits at my house is not 12 megabits. Where when you're talking about a broadcast television network, whether it's DirecTV or Dish Network or cable to your house, you're looking at an HD signal, for example, and that's 8 megabits that's coming over the airwaves, or it's 8 megabits that's coming down a cable signal, plus or minus. 8 megabits to this, we're a long ways from that, even 2. And I think that's a big stumbling issue in getting to this last level of making these devices more viable.
I was going to say, Sam, you could probably speak to that and the complexities that are involved in, enabling time and place shifting just based on, the current billing systems and the way you're siloed.
Well, without a doubt, the experience is important in terms of monetizing it. But and to disagree just a little bit, the quality of the song you get on iTunes is worse than what you can get off of a CD. If you can make it simple, if you can make the interaction elegant, that type of experience as well, the quality doesn't necessarily need to be there. But I completely agree with the different decks that you have to deal with, and having a transcode, and that's where folks like Microsoft can help and actually get their players embedded and have a true browsing experience on a mobile device.
Cooperation from the other.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's forums around that, but it's not even 8 megabits. When I talk to the movie studios and they're laying the groundwork for 3D TV, we need 85 megabits, right? So even the cable experience breaks. So we're always going to be on this catch-up. I think people get it in terms of, hey, I've got a 60-inch experience, I've got a 4-inch experience, but I need to have that that seamless interaction. If I bought it on a DVD, I want to see it on 65 inches. But I also want to watch it on my iPhone or potentially a BlackBerry or whatever the case is how do you deal with the presence issue and the entitlement issue across all those devices?
I understand what you're saying, but I got to tell you, I know the whole food chain, if you will, because we do, for example, like this is generated high definition. We do tons of, we do all the boxing almost. We do Ultimate Fights, almost all of that. WWE, all of that stuff we do. It originates HD, and that camera spits out the back end of it. It's 1.5 gigabits. Take it out there, and we're putting it up on the satellite. We're compressing it down. We're anywhere from 25 to 60 megabits, depending on the, or even lower, plus and minus, when it gets there. By the time it gets down the pipe and gets to DirecTV or Dish Network or your cable system at home, that's where I'm talking about. You're at 8 megabits. And I don't care if you got a 65-inch screen or a 40-inch screen or what size of TV you got. When you originate with this quality, you're going to get pretty good quality as this. If you look at this HD picture as it originates here and look at it on even a screen this small compared to originating this with just a regular analog signal and pushing it over a analog network down the pipeline here, it's going to be a huge difference in the quality of that picture. So again, to me, everything counts on that last mile.
So I have to agree with you, Joe. I think that we're seeing the move to a lot of unicast applications, as we say, over the internet to different devices, and it still comes back to it. You can build great content, but how are you going to distribute it? And you have to distribute it cost effectively. And of course, the more content that's out there, the more competition that's out there. And we keep talking about the eyeballs, but the other issue we've got to face is there's only so much time the eyeballs actually want to be seeing this stuff. So I think there's a lot of different variants in here that come in from the content, the time, the competition, and again, the content distribution side is always going to be a significant cost. Joe and I are, obviously have similar backgrounds here. We know exactly what it costs to put this in place, and of course, when competition goes up, you want to get a bigger catchment area. You want to be more competitive, and of course, more competitive means the ability to distribute to more people, and of course, cost always goes up. So again, particularly in the unicast environment, I can see that the quality is certainly going to be degraded, when you're moving to the last mile in the majority of cases. And then it comes back to, then you have the old competition, where it's a broadcast, and broadcast certainly has the ability to get out to everyone cost effectively as opposed to unicast. So I'd say I definitely agree on that side. Build great content, which is great, but the catch up, I think there's always going to be a lag. And of course, as you're talking about going from 8 megabits per second to 85 megabits per second, that's going to be a significant lag because, and maybe simplifying it too much, it's a software issue on the content creation side, whereas from the distribution side, it really is infrastructure. It's, it's shovel ready and getting out there and putting cables, wires, and satellites up.
Yeah, the interesting thing about video as digital media versus audio or music is that sort of what happened with music, it became very bimodal, where folks were basically they were choosing portability over quality. So there doesn't seem to be a push to get to continue to push the envelope on audio quality for MP3s or other downloadable audio media. People are pretty satisfied with where it is. So you have this kind of you'll have the small but growing niche of audiophiles that still buy vinyl because they want the whole experience and they put it down, and that's sort of on one end of it. And then you have MP3s, which is it's cheap, it's not that good, but it's really portable, and there doesn't seem to be that same paradigm in video. People always wanted better. So when you're talking about 8 megabytes on a phone, nobody says that I want my music on my portable MP3 player to sound just as good on my home stereo. Absolutely not. And that disaster is always kind of made public whenever someone's like, I'll run my iPod as a DJ, and you see stuff, you listen to stuff encoded at 128 kilobytes and it sounds horrendous. Video doesn't have that thing. People always want better quality video. It's only pushing in one direction. So not to sure a lot of folks on the content side look at sort of what happened with music and don't want to necessarily hold that up as like, oh great, we'll go that way. At least they settled at a certain point where portability won over quality, and it seems like in video, consumers still want everything, and that's again pushing a lot of why we're all running around solving problems all the time.
Yeah, I think we have time for one more question. So I think.
was just curious, you were saying that consumers don't care about quality of video, then how do you explain the proliferation of over-the-top content and why consumers continue to download Boxy and Play On and do other things to get it to the television in low-quality video?
I don't think, and John, correct me if you're wrong, I don't think he meant that consumers don't care about quality of video. I think it's there's a certain level of expectation a certain device would output certain level of quality. And that changes from device to device. I mean, if you are on a PC and I can give you adaptive stream with 3 megabits per second that gives you true HD, HD quality on that, that's acceptable at that medium. However, on a phone, if I'm looking at my low 80 by 60 screen, the expectation is totally different than if I'm looking at my 50-inch laptop. And I think just managing those expectations is what John was referring to.
Yeah, and to be really clear, I think what I'm saying is consumers absolutely care about quality in video, and whereas they sort of settled at a certain point with audio and saying, yeah, 320 kilobytes CD quality, good enough. That's not slowing down that market necessarily. But it seems like the consumer appetite for video quality is always more and better. It's not smaller. It's not like, it'd be really great if, I can get these downloads smaller. It's like, no. I want it to look great on my giant plasma and run it off my laptop. Right. So that's what I'm saying. They haven't settled on portability as being the key thing. It's still quality, and it's only going in one direction. So
I just want to step in here. I think the question is about how consumers are choosing convenience in being able to watch on-demand video, even if it's ported through, an Apple TV running Boxy or Netflix on an Xbox, where it might be an SD stream. It might not be up to the capabilities of a 60-inch TV, but because it's there and because you can get it right away and because you can choose it and watch it when you want it, they'll choose that experience over, maybe necessarily waiting for the broadcast, or at least they can catch up later.
Well, it depends if you're at work or you're at home on the weekend and you want to watch Masters, for example, or you're at the work, you can watch it on Sam has done this, AT&T has done this. You can watch this on the internet, and it's HD quality on the internet, but by the time you get home, you can tune into your 65. So I think it's a matter of convenience as well. And I think another important factor that goes very well along with the qualities is the engagement and how interactive experience is. I think if you look back, even 12 months ago, people are building rich media experiences, or versus their standard experience. You look at YouTube, you press your play button, there's a pause button, and then when embed code came in and share with a friend, it was a big thing. Then you look at the inauguration video that CNN has done with the integration of the Facebook, and where we have seen thousands of posts per minute, that the users are coming in, they're posting the comments, they're engaged, and the viewing time has gone through the roof. So along with that quality, I think the engagement level, and it goes along with Scott's question about the personalization piece, it's what creates that ultimate value. And I think that's certainly one advantage of the internet, because you can create that level of engagement. You almost create that community that glues those eyeballs and creates that viewing time, and again gives you the opportunity to monetize that in a much better position.
All right. Well, if no one has anything else, I want to thank our panel and our sponsors, and thank SSPI and WTA for having us here. I invite you all to stick around for the next panel, which I believe is on cable versus satellite versus fiber. So stick around if you can, and thanks, everyone.
Thank you.